Hello, and welcome to your 4:30 Solent Sports News Bulletin with me, Jack Lindsay.
And me, Matthew Dale.
Now, starting with some breaking news from the Ashes, and Stephen Finn and Moeen Ali will miss England's first two Ashes warm-up matches on their tour of Australia. Ali has aggravated his left side. He was set out the first two tour matches, while Finn, who jarred his left knee while batting, will be monitored by the England Medical Department over the next 7 days.
World tennis number one Rafa Nadal has pulled out of the Paris Masters with a knee injury. We reported earlier that he was due to face Filip Krajinovic in the quarterfinals, but the knee problem forced him to announce his withdrawal this afternoon. The Spaniard insists he is just being cautious and will make the season finale, saying, "I am not taking risks, I'll just play. Of course I will play in London." The ATP World Tour Finals is played in the O2 and will start on the 12th of November.
Formula One could soon be without Ferrari, as President Sergio Marchionne has said his team could quit. The Italian says there is a possibility that they may not approve of the direction taken by new owners, Liberty Media, over proposals for a new engine design from 2021. However, speaking about the team, he said Ferrari had been part of our DNA since the day we were born.
Marseille have opened an internal investigation after former Manchester United left-back Patrice Evra kicked one of his own fans last night. The 36-year-old was sent off before the Europa League game against Portuguese side Guimarães. Evra has been regularly targeted by Marseille fans since joining from Juventus last summer. The club have said in a statement, "No matter what happens, a professional must maintain self-control despite provocations and insults, no matter how unjustified they may be." The attack echoed fellow Frenchman Eric Cantona's kung fu kick on a Crystal Palace fan in 1995.
The England football team manager Gareth Southgate has announced his latest squad for the upcoming friendlies against Germany and Brazil. Liverpool fullback Joe Gomez, along with Chelsea loanees Ruben Loftus-Cheek and Tammy Abraham, are the standout inclusions, while regulars like Chris Smalling and Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain have missed the cut. The fixtures are due to be played on the 10th and 14th of November and will see a more youthful look to the national side, giving a chance to some of the younger stars to prove themselves on the international stage.
And now for the sports packages produced by our very own students here at Solent Sport.
How far would you go for a game of football? It's not a worry for most, but the players of Newport Town on the Isle of Wight find themselves regularly crossing the sea to take on their opposition.
Normally, when boarding a ferry, you're heading for sunshine. So where are we going? France? Spain? No, the Isle of Wight on a cold and windy Tuesday night. And this is the case for many teams playing away to Newport in the Sydenham's Wessex Football League. Newport chairman Stuart Ross understands the struggles that travelling teams face to play the fixture.
I don't think they complain. I think the logistics of them getting here, certainly on an evening game like today, is difficult. Particularly the team we're playing today, Leamington Town, they've got a ferry on their doorstep, but they've actually got to go to Southampton to go back to Leamington because their last ferry is past the day.
But the struggles are even harder for the Isle of Wight side, having to put on fundraising events to generate more revenue. This helps to pay for their ferry crossings when playing away, amongst other things.
So the referee, all our match officials, generally the referee will come from the mainland and travel over the evening time. Your other match officials, your linesmen, they'll be local, but we have to pay for their expenses. But then we are reimbursed by the Wessex Football League a small amount because our outgoing expenses are more than what other clubs have to fork out for.
The frequent long journeys haven't stopped them from gaining a loyal fan base, some of which, such as Jenny Holmes, actually travel with the team on the coach.
Last weekend, Saturday just gone, we went to Portland, so that was about 2 hours on the coach, plus the ferry over and back. So probably all in all, we left at about 11, and then we were back home by about 8. So we can do, pretty much nearly 12 hours, but it's all worth it if they play well.
The disadvantaged teams on the island face is managing to find players suitable, either local or that are willing to commute.
We are unfortunately in a position where we only got a small catchment and there are a limited number of players that can operate at this level. Funny enough, I was having a conversation earlier with a spectator. I think the Isle of Wight could actually produce just one excellent team at this level. However, we've got 3 teams on the Isle of Wight.
One player who has made the commitment to move to the Isle of Wight is Belgian-born Aurélie Beyer. Playing for the Belgium top-flight clubs, he has now ended up off the south coast for educational purposes.
And then at the Isle of Wight, I found Pauline and Peter, my host mother and father. They helped me and they find a school for me, the Isle of Wight College, and I do over there the football course. And it's also a good way to turn into English football. But it was not my first choice to come to the Isle of Wight.
Having played at high levels, he hopes to use his time in England to help add to his experience and push on towards a professional contract.
I went to a Liga Alexi to a trial. We were with 500 players, something like that, and I was to the last 11 of the 500, so it was a great experience, but I didn't make it to the team. But for me, it's extra motivation to work harder.
Newport face Alresford Town this Saturday in the league. It will be tough for the home team who sit bottom of the table, but not as tough as Alresford Town, who face a 100-mile round trip. It will be a very long trip for sure. I've been Tom Hayward for Solent Sports News.
You know what, Matt? I do like football, but I don't think I'd travel all that way just to play.
It's certainly quite the commitment. Rugby now, and Solent women suffered a loss at their first game of the season. However, they remain positive.
Team Solent women's rugby coach Gary Banks had a lot to say before the first game of the season, with a number of his players having never played the game before. The team played recently relegated Aberystwyth, but made them work hard for a 25-10 victory. Despite the team losing, Coach Banks was positive about the girls' performance.
It's just a number, score's just a number. The performance out there with some of the individuals that have never played the game before were the things to take away from this, all positives in that. Little things we've got to work on, and we narrow that gap in the number on the door. And we'll be winning games sooner than you think.
Despite Solent taking some big hits during the game, they battled on to the end. Winger Danny Evans explains.
Well, yeah, we definitely weren't expecting them to be quite so rough, but I definitely think the new players took on the hits very well. They didn't come up with too many bruises.
Despite Solent tackling Aberystwyth head-on, Coach Banks believes confidence is what's holding the team back.
The biggest thing is confidence. Some of these girls, like I keep saying, have never played the game before. They just need to be confident that they have the skills and just develop them from there.
This is a point echoed by winger Danny Evans.
I think the most important thing to be able to win that game is have confidence. There's definitely some nervous people out there on the pitch, and just have a bit self-belief and carry on working hard.
As attention turns to next week, Banks also believes his side can perform when they compete on the road.
It's always tough to go away. It really depends on what sort of mindset they turn up with. The trip is a trip. We've got to get over that. We've got time to prepare. When we get there, it's just another game of rugby. So hopefully they take what they've learnt here and what they're going to learn on the training paddock before then and go out and perform really well. But again, if the numbers on the doors don't match, I'm just looking for the performance.
With potential victories just around the corner, the team remain positive for the rest of the season.
I think the expectation is make some wins in the future and carry on working hard like we do in training, and we'll get there.
With Wednesday's away fixture getting closer, can the Solent women's rugby team claim their first win of the season? Connor Summers, Solent Sports News.
That was their first game of the season, so there's plenty more time for them to get the results they need.
Absolutely, plenty of time. Now, mixed martial arts is a sport that has skyrocketed into the spotlight. Southampton's pound-for-pound boxing gym have relocated and are now accommodating training for the new club, Team Solent MMA.
Conor McGregor, now a household name. It's fighters like him that have thrust the sport of mixed martial arts into the spotlight. The elite fighters have caused an influx in participation at grassroots level, and Southampton's new Team Solent MMA club encourage a welcoming atmosphere.
MMA's got a reputation for being real gritty and tough and hard, and it is ultimately when you fight, but when we're in the gym with friends, we're all improving as individuals and just being the best that we can be, helping each other and keeping fit, keeping motivated and just doing what we got to do.
It might seem like an intimidating environment, but there's a lot more to the sport than just punching and kicking.
I don't need to be fighting to be still training and becoming the best that I can be. This is a medicine for a bad day for me.
So for some, the sport is a remedy. Ivan Glautier trains at the club and uses fighting as a release from his working day in IT.
I definitely feel a little bit more calm. So often I come home from work and I'd not be angry, but I'd have lots of energy and I wouldn't know what to do with it. But I come and I train and then I go home and I can just sleep. It's nice.
The Solent guys welcome new members with open arms. Just don't get too confident, because a hug can quickly turn into a grapple.
We get, I'd say there's a new person every 2 weeks or so, and they seem to fit in really quickly. Nobody here is going to batter you. Everyone will sort of go easy and help you learn.
MMA's popularity surge means that more and more youngsters aspire to be the champion of the octagon, and new local teams are capitalising on this demand. Steve Barnes is the owner of Pound for Pound Boxing and has recently moved his gym to a bigger location with better facilities to accommodate training sessions for Team Solent MMA.
Why aren't we doing this with MMA or Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? And I had a meeting with a guy who runs the kickboxing today as well. So if we're housing all of those different contact sports in here, and Solent being a huge provider, a huge pool of people that are into those sort of sports, and then all other sort of local people can join in as well, I think it's just doing what we've already done, but in multiple sports, I guess.
McGregor exchanged blows with Floyd Mayweather in a landmark event in the summer that saw boxing and MMA collide. Steve now has fighters from both sports fighting side by side, but should their paths really be crossing in the ring?
For me, I love boxing. I'm not a huge fan of how Mayweather conducts himself. However, he is untouchable, so lots of respect to him. An MMA fighter should stay in an MMA cage.
Callum Byrne reporting for Solent Sports News.
So it looks like we could have our very own Conor McGregor right here in Southampton.
Well, if they all keep working hard, they could all get that well-deserved break. After Lewis Hamilton won his 4th F1 title last weekend, one of our teams headed to a go-kart track in Eastleigh to chat to the next generation of drivers.
Lewis Hamilton became F1 World Champion for the 4th time last weekend. Following his victory, he acknowledged his karting roots and where his passion for the sport began.
I guess on special days like this, you just generally tend to look back at where you've come from, your thoughts of when I was 5 years old, when I started watching Formula One and dreaming of being a Formula One driver, and then embarking on starting go-karting when I was 8.
We visited Team Sport Go-Karting to see if we could find the next British F1 prospect. One of the young drivers told us what it's like to be on the track and his possible route to professional sport.
Yeah, it's a good place, I think, because many of the famous drivers sort of started with go-karting.
Another racer honing his skills thinks that Hamilton's success will propel British motorsport further than ever before.
Big moment in his career in England as a country that's getting more and more involved with motorsports. So yeah, it was good.
The 16-year-old competitor, Miguel, has been karting for the past few years and believes that it's a great platform for youngsters to take it to the next level.
Because you've got to start somewhere, and this is somewhere you can start, and it's good because you've got working carts, a good place. It'll be a good environment. If you have the ability at a young age on a go-karting track, then definitely you can go up and you can practice, but I'm not that good.
The 2017 Formula 1 season is not the first where Hamilton and Vettel have locked horns in a title fight. In 1995, both drivers faced off in a kart series. To this day, Hamilton dons the number 44 on his car in honour of his karting days, the same number he had back when he was 8 years old.
I think as a kid, I just wanted to race, and I bet you any money that all the kids that are karting now, maybe they're thinking further ahead because they're a new generation today. For me, I was just thinking I love racing and I just want to race.
All 20 competitors in last week's Mexican Grand Prix started their careers behind the wheel of the much less powerful vehicle to show the clear path from go-karts to Formula 1. In fact, most previous F1 drivers got their route into the sport through karting, with the exception of a minor few, notably Martin Brundle, who started via rallycross. Hamilton's title makes him the most successful British F1 driver in history, leaving behind Jackie Stewart, who won 3 Drivers' World Championships. Taylor Maxwell is the duty manager of the Eastleigh circuit, and he can see potential in some of the current crop of young drivers.
Well, I reckon that so far there's been a couple of people which have been, certainly of the category we could send them on to get sponsored. Lewis Halliday, he's been here, he's got some seriously quick times, progressed from the kids' kart to the adult karts, and then he's moving on to outdoor karting. But if he keeps going the way he's going, he'll end up with a pretty promising career as well.
Only time will tell if any of these young drivers will make it into Formula 1. Joe Sweeney, Solent Sports News.
So we've got the next Conor McGregor and now potentially the next Lewis Hamilton.
The stars all over the city by the look of it. Now, being 11 can be hard, but for this snooker prodigy, life is moving faster than usual. Having relinquished his under-13 and under-19 titles, Oliver Sykes has now got his eyes set on the big kids in the under-21s bracket.
Chandlersford's talented 11-year-old Oliver Sykes has reached his first final on the feeder circuit for the National Under-21 Snooker Tour. Sykes qualified from his round-robin group at the Crucible Sports and Social Club in Newbury, defeating local rival and 15-year-old Bradley Caldroy 2-0. This came just weeks after the junior claimed the Under-19 Premier title, defeating players 8 years his senior. He also claimed his 5th Premier title in the Under-13 League and announced he won't be taking part in this competition next season. Speaking about his recent accomplishment, Oliver describes how the feeder circuit final is a step up from the previous competitions.
Being in the EASB final it feels much better than being in the Keystars finals because EASB goes further to the Prem Tour.
In today's world, where we hear about parents trying to force their children to stardom, it was refreshing to hear from parent Dean Sykes about a father's role in a child's success.
Yeah, I think it's very important, but the child's got to want to do it. I mean, it's got to be. You can't force him to do things that he doesn't want to do, and yeah, just help him out with it as much as possible. Really, and so you're just a chauffeur, really, and help him with practicing and that, picking balls out of pockets, giving him advice, and going off around the country to all these tournaments and things.
One of the biggest worries for a parent is making sure their child is managing their workload well, and Dean explains how Oliver's education is just as important as his hobby.
He's just moved to the seniors, so he's got a little bit more pressure at school now, but he's not at the age where he's got exams or anything yet, so he's managing quite well.
Of course, young Oliver is not left on his own to learn new skills and improve his game. His qualified coach, Tim Dunkley, oversees the left-hander's progression, as he does with many other young players. Tim showed a lot of pride when talking about Oliver's progression, considering how young the multiple champion is.
Watching some of the things he does are mind-blowing. I mean, I was there when he made his first 50 break, just past his 10th birthday. One of the proudest moments of my life. And then watching him win his first Q-Stars tournament. Incredible.
You'd think it would be daunting for an 11-year-old to compete against players a lot older than him, but Oliver explains he only gets nervous in unfamiliar territory.
The ones who I've played already, I don't get very nervous with because I've played them already, but if they're like new people and they're older than me, then yeah, they just get a bit nervous.
Whilst he may not be the most confident on camera, around the table it's a different story, as he told us exactly how he wanted his shots to play out before taking them. And it's no wonder he has this faith in his ability, considering his already impressive resume of snooker triumphs. And it goes without saying, it doesn't come down to pot luck. I'm Gurpreet Singh, Solent Sports News.
So, we've got the next Conor McGregor, the next Lewis Hamilton, and potentially here, the next Roddy O'Sullivan.
I'd tell you, there's a hell of a lot of potential around Southampton today. Anyway, that's all for today. Thanks very much for watching, and don't forget to check us out on social media at Solent Sports News. Goodbye.